Hi, what an intro. I gotta take Paul everywhere with me. Just walk into every room before me. Everyone, this is Paul. He'll be introducing me into the room. Keen strategic and networking skills. I gotta pay whoever wrote that a bit more. All right, hi everyone. Happy International Women's Day. Can I get a woo? Woo! All right. Oddly, is it too much with the two microphones? It's not too much for me because I love the sound of my own voice, but is it too much for you? You all right? This stage looks exactly like the stage from my high school. So I feel like a little school kid again a little bit, but not an adult, and I'm going to give an adult speech about women's issues right now. All right, so we have this sort of thing. I have slides to go along with it. I won't, there's no death by PowerPoint in this one, I promise you. All right, so I want to tell you a little story first. I want to tell you my favourite story about feminism before we get started. And I'm going to do it in a little bit of a dramatic fashion because it's the high school stage, so we'll do it that way. The month is April and the year is 1965. If there's nothing else that you take away from my speech today, I want you to remember these two ladies, Merle Thornton and Rosalie Bogner. Does anyone in the room know who they are already, just by looking at them? Oh, it's going to be such a good surprise. The city was Brisbane and the location was the Regatta Hotel. And like the beginning of a bad joke, Merle and Rosalie walked into a bar. Rosalie takes a look at Merle. She opens her purse, removes a chain and a padlock, and padlocks herself to the bar. Good old Merle, not to be left out, she chains herself there also. There are our beautiful girls there. See, up until 1965, it was illegal for us to have a drink at the pub. Let that one sink in. No Friday wines. Women could have a drink at selected ladies' lounges, but only if accompanied by a male. And I don't know about you guys, but on Ladies' Friday wines, I don't want my dad or my husband there. I'm there to talk about them, not with them. I don't know how many of you I've already asked, none of you know this story. Merle and Rosalie weren't really having any of that either. So they also handed out while they were in the pub feminist propaganda. And of course, the only other people in the pub were blokes. So inside the footage that they took of them, you can actually see men in the background sort of uncomfortably laughing at them and pointing at them and stuff like that. But did it faze them? No. The police then showed up sometime later and asked Rosalie for the keys. Rosalie said she didn't know where the keys were. They asked the publican to find a hammer. Couldn't find a hammer. Maybe the publican was on their side. And then the police tell them that they'll be forcibly removed. Merle and Rosalie said they were all right with that. And after a while of discussion, and in Rosalie's account of what the police officer said, in a fatherly manner, he leaned in. So stay as long as you like then, Dal. Have a good time. Don't drink too much, I guess. And shortly thereafter, the segregation of men and women in the pub was over. Dramatic pause. Thanks to the one person who clapped. Pay you later. Wait. There's old matey. That's Merle for you. That's Merle in 2016. And a fun fact, the bath she wasn't allowed to be served in, that was called the Regatta, now has a sidebar called Merle's Bar. Yeah, so not only did she take it, but she put her name on it. The reason I love this story so much is not because these women directly contributed to me being able to get a pint, but because they found their voice. And they used it in the funniest way possible. They took a gender issue and they attacked it from the pub. I've been asked today to give a speech to you in line for the theme of this year's International Women's Day at Telstra, which is to be bold for change. I thought about it quite a bit since I got told last Wednesday, over the weekend. And I smiled quite a lot to myself because being bold for change gives me licence here to make a speech that counts a little bit. And I'm usually known for being a bit of a goofball, so I don't get to give that many dramatic and serious speeches. And I promise I won't do that again. So let's discuss gender as a woman or what it means to me as a millennial feminist. I'm also aware that when I say millennial and I say feminist, some people might think that I'm a man-hater who lives at home with her parents. And I don't, I have my own house. But hopefully by the end of the day, none of you will think that. For the men, the boys who are in here, throw a hand up for me, let me see where you are. All right. So for the men who are in here attending this International Women's Day event, I'm going to take a second here to congratulate you. You are everything that is right about the perseverance and the support of womankind. And without days like today, without men like you, we will be unable to continue at the pace that we are, to the goals that we need to achieve. By virtue of you being in this room, all of you, you are contributing in your own personal way to the support of gender equality. And on behalf of the women all sitting around you, I thank you wholeheartedly. As my mum would say to my dad, to think all you had to do was listen. So I've been asked to build my speech around a time I was bold. And I know just by looking at me you think I'm never bold. I'm very shy. And how that manifested and what others can learn from it. So the day that I found my own voice, that was a bold day for me. It was a day that mattered. It was bold for me because I was a 20-something-year-old woman starting a business in an industry that was heavily, heavily dominated by men. And before I found my voice, I was uncertain of how I was meant to be and how I was meant to act. Then I became the Telstra Victorian Young Businesswoman of the Year. Someone gave me a microphone and that's it, it was all over. I had a voice and I started using it. And people started asking me for my opinion on women's issues. When I gave the Telstra speech, I made a lot of jokes. I don't expect anyone to have watched it here. All of its 487 views and counting. Every time my mum watches it, it counts up one. So when I made the speech, I made a lot of jokes, right? But I also talked about prejudices that I had faced. And I don't know, we talked a little bit about my background, but I was in the military, and I also worked in super maximum prisons with male and female prisoners. And those were very heavily male-dominated industries. And I was also very young. I was the youngest executive manager that they had hired at the Women's Super Maximum Prison by 15 years. And I was also a woman, so that was pretty interesting. I talked about not being able to be myself in those situations, trying to impress the male hierarchy, and how exhausted it made me. I spoke about getting passed over for promotion, and I told the exact story about how that happened. I was spoken down to often, I was undermined, and I was asked to get coffee for managers and meetings. In fact, the very first meeting that I walked into, one of the guys turned to me and said, "Get us a coffee, Dal." And I told him, "I'm the new executive manager, you can get me a coffee." I was treated poorly even by my female superior. Unfortunately, especially by her. I found out that talking about all those things, though, they were important for us, for everyone in this room. And they were important for others to hear too. My own voice, it made me bold. Because when I found it was when I decided to stop trying to be someone else. And I decided to be myself. When I decided that I would act upon and manifest the workings of the women who came before me. I hope Jim Carrey's not distracting you all too much. Bye, Jim. Women burned their bras, right? And they went braless for us for an entire day to allow me to stand here and talk to you about burning a bra from the safety of wearing a bra. I hope... Wait. I own a tech company, hold out. I don't own a button company. Paul, can you help me? I don't know what's happening. I swear it wasn't me. I didn't press anything. I might have pressed something. But... Hey, you're on your phone. You just got busted. Hey, Philippines, send me a Twitter. Yeah, give them a wave. Hi. Who's that? Where? Oh, they're in Philippines. Blu-ray camera, conference, Lectin computer.
Tried that before.
Conference, fallback display.
Oh, hang on.
Lectin
Presentation.
computer, yeah, conference. Yay! Women working to support women. Ta-da! Oh, phew. I'm not that interesting without pictures. So I hope everyone remembers the freedom trash cans at the Miss America protest There's a Trump joke in there, but we're too good for that today, okay? Where if you didn't burn your bra, you could throw it away. And the first thing I thought about was just think about that, throwing your bra away. So you're making a protest, and then the next day you have to go bra shopping as well. And we all know how much we love bra shopping, am I right, guys? It's right up there with jeans shopping. And so the sacrifice certainly continued on that day. So the more I thought about it, the more I realised that my bold moment wasn't really mine alone to possess, but that it was bold in kind, because of the efforts of a lot of people and a lot of events that bring us to here and now. My voice that I discovered put me at the end of a long line of women who had found their own voice in different times and throughout history. My mum's in there somewhere. Oh, I can never find her. So in the spirit of womanly endeavours, right, and since we're here to discuss being bold for change, I'm putting together a little to-do list for us. Who loves a to-do list? Right here. Yeah. Who loves to audit and rewrite their to-do lists? Am I right? Yeah. You should check out Asana. It's just one big to-do list. So in the spirit of that, I thought we might go through our ladies' to-do list throughout the ages and have a look at what we've ticked off and see what we kind of still have to do. All right, so let's see. Right to vote. Yep, 1905, tick. What's after that? Establish International Women's Day. Beautiful, 1911, tick. 1919, here we go. This is what we're going to talk about today. Equal pay. Women's wages for work are set at 54% of the male rate. Wait, what? 1919. Yeah, let me see what it says here. A minimum wage for women's work was set by Mr. Justice Higgins as part of the 1919 clothings trade case. This is him. The first Commonwealth arbitration case to set the minimum wage for women. The minimum wage for women then commonly became 54% of the male rate until 1950. A quote by this guy, "My problem now is to find a minimum wage for an adult female. What is the sum per week necessary to satisfy the needs of an average female employee who has to support herself from her own exertions?" 54%. Has this guy ever bought tampons and Moroccan argan oil? I don't think he has, 54%. Talk to him about my endeavours. All right, get a first woman elected to Parliament. Edith Cowan, 1921, tick. She's ecstatic about it. 1950, here we go. All right, we're back to basic wage. We must have fixed it by now. Basic wage, female basic wage, 1950, set at 75% of the male basic wage. No, that's embarrassing. Let's just move on. I'm not there yet. 1966, we get our first federal minister, Annabel Rankin, tick. 1969, here we go. All right, we got it, equal pay. 1969, the concept of equal pay for equal work is to be implemented by 1972. Oh, that's so embarrassing. Moving on. Sorry, I didn't check all my notes. 1976, marital rape becomes illegal. So in 1976, for the first time in the English-speaking world, rape in marriage became illegal. Tick. Now we're on to my girls. 1994, Spice Girls, that is all. Tick. All right, let's fast forward to the end. Women and children march misogyny, bigotry and hatred, in protest of misogyny, bigotry and hatred from the State Library to Parliament House to protest Trump. Tick. So let's see. What are we left with? We are going to audit and rewrite our to-do list. So satisfying. What's left on it? Our list for today, we've got gender equality, we've got equal pay, and I'm putting my own one in here. I'm putting in intergenerational support, and I will, of course, explain more about that later. But for the moment, let's talk about gender equality. My thoughts on gender equality are that change is within for change out. I believe that if every woman pledges their love and support for their fellow women and encourages the success and removal of competition, we will see an amazing change for the better. Change is not measured by the incredibly large things, but by the tiny things. These are the things I have seen and I know to be true. Like how one compliment, one kind word to a woman will mean the world. Saying well done, saying you looked amazing, doing this or that, will help her change the way that she sees herself. Success is everywhere, and there is enough of it to go around to be proud of another person while still having enough success left over for yourself. We need to have conversations about things like this, and the fact that success and likability are positively correlated for men and they're negatively correlated for women. Success and likability are negatively correlated for women by other women. So I encourage you to discuss that. Not right now, I'm talking. Equal pay. We're still on it. Sorry about my embarrassing timeline to-do list. But we had a couple goes and we're still not there. So it's still here in a big way, equal pay. Why are we underrepresented in positions of authority and in hierarchy? When I was first asked about the gender pay gap by Tom Elliott on 3AW, he referred to the gender pay gap as a perceived gender pay gap. I didn't jump over the desk and smack him. I sat still. You're welcome. If you're yet to read on the current state, ladies and gentlemen, of the gender pay gap, you have a responsibility to your fellow women to do so. So that when someone says something stupid, like perceived gender pay gap, you have a concise and well put together retort to that. Own, exercise, and practice your voice that's been gifted to you by prior generations. Make Merle and Rosalie proud. This leads me to the last thing on our to-do list that we didn't get rid of. Intergenerational mentorship. That ugly word, millennials. So if you Google millennials, right, who are the generations most commonly accepted to be born after 1984, of whom I am also a part, you'll find parodies and blogs dedicated to how lazy and entitled they are. This is a problem for all of us. It's a problem not just for here and now, but it's a problem for the future. It's a problem for everyone. I'm intimate with this issue. As my company's program Millennial Mentor, we move into organisations and we discuss these prejudices, and we talk to non-millennials about supporting millennials to mentor them and to create strong and independent future leaders. The changes we are discussing right now will form the baton that will be passed to them, and if we don't mentor them, me included, now, what hope do we have for the future? This is especially important for women. That they are fostered, supported on women's issues, and led towards tangible results by virtue of their own voices. And certainly they exercise their own voices in my experience, in real life and on social media. So no more can we afford to pay millennials off as lazy and entitled, because every time we do that, we hurt everybody. We hurt our future and we hurt the future of women's rights. Millennials will make up the next generation of leaders that run our country. They will facilitate trade with China and Japan, sit in government, and believe it or not, a millennial will be one of our next prime ministers. Millennials will also fly the flag of women's rights for a long time into the future. This intergenerational interplay should sit high on everybody's list. That's the serious part done. Face. So, to be bold today, I promise that I accept and appreciate the path that's been paved for me. And I accept my responsibility to you, that I will do everything in my power to continue to support and care for all women and men, and train and mentor women that come after me. We will together continue to redefine the constructs of what it means to be a woman. Today is a day of celebration and joy. Today is the day I stand in front of you as a 31-year-old woman, an example of the product of feminism, of equality and gender rights that women who have come before me have done anything and everything in their power to make sure that I have. My message for you today is this one of celebration, but also one of finding your own voice. Because we're not close to done yet. We're not finished, and will not be finished for a long time. Gender equality, the pay gap, and millennial mentoring, they're still on our to-do list. So never forget, ladies, that someone campaigned for your right to earn money. Someone even campaigned for your right to buy alcohol with that money and drink it excessively. And also don't forget to say cheers to your fellow women, and especially the men in this room. You just got a little bit sexier. on this International Women's Day. And I'll leave you with a quote from Jane Goodall. What you do makes a difference. And you have to decide what kind of difference you'd like to make. Thanks.